Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education and research.
Well, it's already week 3 of 2022, and statistically speaking, if you had set a New Year's resolution, you've already given it up. If you're one of the few people who haven't, well, congratulations, but again, statistically speaking, if you set one now, you'll probably give it up by February 1st. I just turned 30 this past year, and I have yet to fully come to terms with it, but I'm also yet to meet anyone ever that has kept their resolution or achieved their goal by the end of the year. I've met people who have reached a significant goal or milestone, celebrated it with them, and celebrated them. Not so oddly enough, though, these achievements are never, at least in my experience, according to the year-long resolution-esque timeline. I say not so oddly because when you look at it intentionally, it's easy to see that the main difference between those situations compared to a New Year's resolution is a dramatic amount of willpower, or intention. Growing up, I had my fair share of partying. To be honest, I was a big fan of the wacky tobacco, the devil's lettuce, as well as a plethora of other recreational substances of questionable legality according to our legal team. Now, I don't bring this up to brag, nor do I recommend or condone the behavior, but between that point and now, I've given up almost all of it. I'm down to vaping nicotine, which even in that regard has decreased severely from the pack-a-day of cigarettes I used to inhale. My point is, at least in my experience, is that you can't achieve a significant goal, such as creating or removing a habit, until you decide you actually want to. Thankfully, my recreational habits never rose to the level of a full-blown addiction, but I can't say the same for every friend I've found along the way. Even so, in today's society, you'd have to be completely ignorant to not be at all familiar with the stronghold that is addiction, and therefore the miracle that is recovery. For those who aren't, and even those that are, I suppose, when you hear someone's recovery story, you'll often hear about failed attempt after failed attempt after failed attempt, until one day, something just clicked. That's not to discredit the immense amount of effort that each one puts into it, and I'm not speaking for all addicts or any addicts in particular, but even out of those that don't outright state it that way, they have these experiences that when analyzed often include a plethora of resources that they took advantage of in that final attempt. But the resources utilized are more often than not available to be used prior to said final attempt. And the same is often true when it comes to those situations when we're able to celebrate significant accomplishments and all the attempts prior to. It's not hard to understand why, but it is difficult to hold a can of soup above your head. Don't believe me? Think you're all tough, do ya? Why don't you grab a can of soup and hold it above your head until I tell you when? No, seriously, go get it.
Got it?
Alright, go. And while you do that, I guess now is as good a time as any to get started. Hello, my name is Gabe and welcome to the Very Intentional Podcast for Very Intentional People, the podcast for Myconic Media Design about being intentional in the life of your business and the business of your life. If you've joined us for episode 1, I apologize. I know it was 2 weeks ago and I've been flakier than psoriasis, but we'll talk more about that in just a bit, so don't chew me out yet. And no, it's not just an excuse, it's actually, whoa, okay, I see what you did there, trying to bait me into telling you now. Nice try. I'm smarter. Listen, if you've got something to say about it, then drop it in the comments below or send us an email or leave us a voicemail, which you can do on the VIP for VIP page on Anchor at www.anchor.fm.vip, the number 4 VIP. And that is what we call a seamless self-promo. Jury's still out on the shameless part, though. And don't forget that there are additional resources for every episode available for free at www.iconicmedia.design/VIP for VIP. And now, before we get into it, and before you can put that can down, the reason that I've been MIA for the past 2 weeks is that I procrastinated a tiny bit and slightly miscalculated the time necessary to get all the ducks in a row and preparations made for, well, let me ask you this. That's right, we are hosting our very first educational event, a one-day workshop focusing on social media marketing for small businesses called More Than Media. If you look at the title, the word "than" is in brackets. I'm just saying that's a little hint to a secret, but you'll get much more than a secret at the event. You'll leave with a complete digital marketing strategy to implement that will be designed to achieve your unique goals and exceed your expectations. But that's not all, folks. We're actually hosting 2 events.
What?
That's right, 2 events. The second is the same thing, but different. It's specifically for churches and community-based nonprofit organizations, which are a little bit different in terms of marketing strategy. So if you want more information on that, or the first event, or anything else in that regard, you can go to our website under Connect on the menu bar. You'll find events, and you can get all the details and register for the one that best suits you. And as a subscriber to this podcast, and I'm not naive, I know you haven't subscribed yet, so come on, get to it. Good. Now, as a subscriber of this podcast, you can get 50% off of your registration by using the code VIP, the number 4, VIP, at checkout. So check that out. It's always good to have someone familiar with all the details of your brand or organization as well. So we do urge to bring a partner or small group that you can hash things out along the way as we go through our process. And like everything else in this episode, you can find all that and the links to everything mentioned in the VIP lounge on our website at www.iconicmedia.design/VIP, the number 4, VIP. Have you ever heard of Chinese water torture? According to Wikipedia, it's a mentally painful process in which cold water is slowly dripped onto the scalp, forehead, or face for a prolonged period of time, often executed using what's referred to as a dripping machine. And it goes on to say that the process causes fear and mental deterioration in the subject. Consistency is the reason that a machine is used to execute it. I'm not saying that from experience, I just am analyzing the situation. It's very much the same idea behind using Justin Bieber's song Baby to torture people. Not an insult at a roast, but a proven fact, by the way. But why are we talking about torture, you might ask? Well, the same reason I had you hold up that soup can above your head for 5 minutes. Shit. I am sorry. You can put that down if you haven't wussed out already, that is. Huh? But the reason for all of that is to back up this point. Having to endure even a minor inconvenience for an extended period of time can and will cause tension, increasingly so, in one's life. You might be surprised to learn how many minor inconveniences you deal with on a daily basis, or maybe you wouldn't be. Depending on how much each one gets under your skin attributes a lot to how much you remember it, but I challenge you to go through your day and intentionally make a note of each inconvenience as it hits you in the face. If we have similar analysis, you'll find that our big annoyances are often made up of, if not a byproduct of, a conglomeration of minor inconveniences or annoyances. And I put it to you that the longer each must go on, the more likely you are to address it. That's the reason behind the power of intention, like we were talking about in the opening. Now, given that point right there, as well as the name of the podcast, I would understand why you might think that the word that will change your life is intention. But alas, it is not, and we will get there, but hold your horses.
My horse is amazing.
The thing is, believe it or not, I've had a lot of anxiety regarding my 2-week absence from the podcast. You might think,
Well then, why didn't you record and post an episode sooner?
the short answer is that I wanted to preserve quality over quantity. The long answer is because that's something that I've been trying to be more intentional about this year. Putting quality over quantity and doing it consistently. I've struggled with consistency since the plot twist broke up a few years ago. Being in the independent music industry since I was about 15, I had become accustomed to the spontaneity that life only provides. And not only provides, like that's the only thing, the only type of life it really provides, but it kind of requires it. So this year, for my New Year's resolution of sorts, I'm focusing on consistency. That's not just with this podcast, but across every facet of my life. In that effort, I was torn between putting my limited time and energy into preparing for the events I mentioned earlier and preparing and producing this podcast. The former, however, had deadlines, while the latter did not. And so I put all of my effort into getting those things ready for the events and didn't produce or post any episodes of the podcast. Those of you who are particularly keen may have already picked up on it, but don't worry if you haven't, because we have finally arrived. The one word that will change your life is consistency. Well, the one word that will change my life is consistency. The truth is, the only person that really knows the one word that will change your life is you. I know it's not very ta-da-y, but I would argue it's effective, and that's really the only thing that matters. See, often we bite off more than we can chew because we're overly confident in our abilities and we suck at calculating the amount of disruption the change will cause, or the amount of effort it will require us to make those permanent changes in our lives. I've recently been reminded of that, despite kind of knowing it, but not really applying it. I'm sure that's relatable to some extent. So I'm taking things slower this year. I'm not buying into the new year, new me bullshit mentality that subconsciously insinuates that much change is great change. And the truth is, that's not always the case. Arguably, it's rarely the case. It's better to focus on a diet as opposed to a full health and wellness makeover, because when we broaden the scope of our goal, or generalize, if you will, we're able to make small but significant changes that last. It's that last part that's important, in case you missed that. No one cares about how great your fad diet was going to be and the amazing results you were going to see when it overwhelms you and you crap out on 2 weeks in. And that same principle applies across the board. I guess you could say that if the main theme of this episode is simplifying your intentions into a theme, the secondary theme would be things add up. So what's your theme this year? What's the one word that's going to change your life? I'd love to know. So let me know down in the comments, via email. So let me know via email at vip4vip@iconicmedia.design. That's our email. Or by voicemail at anchor.fm/VIP, the number 4 VIP, or in the comments below. And if you notice a comment from someone who's focusing on something you already have under your belt, leave some encouragement, or my favorite, unsolicited advice. We're hashtag better together, so be a VIP and lend your expertise. Well, I know it's kind of short, but that's our show for this week. Thank you so much for, just taking the time to give us a chance, particularly after being ghosted the past couple weeks. If you joined us for the first episode, that is, but no worries, you don't have to miss the next one. Just subscribe to the channel. In doing so, not only will you gain more episodes of our show, but a variety of free resources and training material, all for free. And if you ring the bell, you'll even get a reminder, so you know exactly when everything drops. You can get more from this episode as well as any episode of the podcast on our website at www.iconicmedia.design/VIP4VIP, including additional resources and the links to everything that we mentioned in the episode. Plus, you can get all of the info on the events that I told you about at the beginning, and if you're in the Titusville, Pennsylvania area and your business, church, or organization needs some help with social media, I encourage you to check it out. I'd love to meet you, and I know that you'll walk away ready and able with strategy in hand. And remember, code VIP, the number 4 VIP, will get you 50% off. I know goodbyes can be difficult, so let us be a regular part of your day. Connect with us on social media at iconicmedia.design on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Gabe Bryan. Thanks again for joining me. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, from one VIP to another, do what you do and make it iconic.